RTD Board of Directors will be held remotely via Zoom and will be recorded. The meeting recordings, along with the unofficial minutes of the meetings, will be posted as soon as practicable on the board's website. During today's meeting, we are providing communication access real-time translation, also known as CART. Anyone who would like to access this service should send an email to the RTD Board Office at rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com, and a link will be provided. Additionally, the CART transcript can be automatically translated for anyone who would like access to a live transcript of this meeting in Spanish. A live stream of this meeting is also available via RTD's YouTube page. So I would now like to call the roll for the committee. Director Arcuri was here. I'll come back to her. Director Geisinger, you're here. Director Guchenritter.
Here.
Director Guzman.
I'm here.
Director Larson.
Here.
And Director Rusha.
I am present.
Good. Okay, so for the record, we have 6 directors present, but I'm sure Cindy will be joining us quickly.
Okay, can you not hear me, Karen?
I hear you.
Okay, I still have this weird thing where I can't be seen for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know what that is all about.
Well, please mark the record that Director Arcuri has just joined us. So we have now 7 directors present. Public comment. I would like to open public comment to anyone who would like to address the committee regarding any topic listed in the published meeting agenda for the current and immediately preceding month. If you wish to speak and have not already done so, please either raise your virtual hand or press *9 on your phone. During this time, the committee will not offer any direct comments. Oh, Cindy. During this time, will not offer any direct comments or responses. However, if you would like to be contacted regarding your public comment, please email the RTD Board Office at rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com. So, are there any hands, Mr. Kroll, that would like to speak?
Yes, Committee Chair Banker, this is Jack Kroll, Executive Manager of the Board Office. We have at this time 1 individual with their hand raised, and that is Francisco Soto.
Okay. Francisco, would you like to proceed? You've got 3 minutes.
Okay. Yes. Hello. My name is Francisco Elvis Soto. I am a citizen journalist. I believe I have uncovered time card fraud and wasteful spending involving RTD and Denver Police. RTD is paying for the Denver Police Department's overtime. My investigation started when I saw an incident that involved 7 police officers downtown, 4 RTD police officers and 3 Denver police officers in uniform. From different RTD police reports, they stated that the Denver officers were off duty working for RTD as Paul Unit. One stated Paul Unit booking. I searched online using different browsers, used AI, searched on RTD's website and Denver's website, could not find anything that specifically talks about RTD paying off-duty Denver police officers. The 3 main sources of information that I did find about off-duty officers was in the RTD Accounts Payable Report, Denver Police Operations Manual, and Denver Police Audit Report, June 2023, but still does not explicitly state anything connecting RTD and off-duty Denver Police or anything about RTD paying off-duty Denver police officers.
Stop right now.
What? You want me to stop?
No, Mr. Soto, please continue. I believe Director Banker was communicating with one of her animals at her house.
Okay,
Please continue. You have
Uh,
roughly
Yes,
1
I'm
minute.
sorry,
and
the
50 seconds
doorbell
Okay.
rang. That's so much for a Zoom meeting. So,
okay,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Mr. Soto, continue.
Um, according to the accounts payable report on August 1st, 2025, 69 off-duty police officers were paid to work for RTD as security. It does not state in the accounts payable if all of the officers were Denver police or what departments they come from. But I specifically confirmed one of the police officers that was in the police report and that I saw at the incident. His name is Ishmael Macias Lopez. His rank is a captain. More about Lopez. According to the 2023 audit report, the city of Denver is concerned about paying Denver police officers overtime because it is costly and expensive. Now, this is directly from the manual. Officers must not work more than 64 hours in a week unless the police chief makes an exception. The department has processes to review time cards on a weekly basis to ensure officers comply with these requirements. But in analyzing officers' time entries, we found the department was not consistent in how it applied the time codes. Okay, end of that. The Denver Police Department Operation Manual talks about grant and non-grant off-duty jobs paid by the city, but not RTD, and the payment is included in the officer's paycheck. The manual states that officers cannot work off-duty if it interferes with normal scheduled hours. That off-duty
Okay.
work has to be
Excuse me,
improved.
if I could interrupt, Mr. Soto. Your 3 minutes are up, but here's what I would like to suggest. Could you please contact Mr. Kroll and our CEO, Deborah Johnson? Mr. Kroll, is there a way that we can contact Francisco and make sure he gets the proper email so we can get the information that he's collected?
Yes, Director Banker, we've been in touch with Mr. Soto previously and have
Okay.
his contact information. We'll reach out directly.
Okay, great, great. Well, thank you very much for contacting us. It's important information and we'll look into it and hopefully we will get back to you in the next day or two. So thank you. Any other folks that would like to speak during public invited to be heard? No.
Director Banker, there are no further hands raised at this time.
Okay, and are there any emailed comments received for today's meeting?
Director Banker, there were no emailed comments in advance of this meeting.
Okay, so with no other participants, we will close the public comment period right now, this time. So the next item on the agenda is external entities, and there's no external entity reports for today's meeting. We have 2 recommended actions. So the first action is for the 5-year financial forecast. For the Board of Directors to adopt the 5-year financial forecast. First, do we have a motion?
Let's move it so we can have discussion.
Okay. Director Guzman
Second.
made the motion and Director Geishenritter, your second?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to ask Kelly Mackey, Chief Financial Officer, to present this item to the committee. I would also ask that those directors who have questions or who wish to speak, raise your virtual hands. I'll call on you in turn. For directors or staff calling into the meeting, if you wish to speak, please press *9. CFO Mackey, would you like to make the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Chair Banker. This is Kelly Mackey, Chief Financial Officer, and good evening, everyone. In this discussion, I will present the 5-year financial forecast, also known as the FIFE, as an action item. The forecast was previously presented as a discussion item for the Finance and Planning Committee on July 15, 2025, and then approved by the Finance and Planning Committee on September 9. The Board of Directors voted on September 30 to return the action item to the Finance and Planning Committee for further review. On November 11, the Finance and Planning Committee approved a motion to postpone consideration of the FIFE until Q1 of 2026. All right, so this evening I will overview the financial planning process again for those who are new, some key assumptions that are incorporated into the forecast, the updated forecast, and then next steps. The forecast is a 5-year revenue and expenditure forecast that staff updates at least annually. The FIFE is a basis for RTD's budget preparation. It is not an appropriation of funds. We review the FIFE internally in detail and ensure it is aligned with the fiscal policy. It is tied closely to the Transit Asset Management Plan and the Asset Management Plan. Cross-functional teams go through a process to evaluate and score funding requests with a number of variables. And additionally, business cases are created, evaluated, and adjusted for funding needs and requests. Here's a view of the financial planning process for 2025 and 2026, which shows that the bulk of the 5-year financial forecast internal efforts conclude in August of last year for the FIFE that we're reviewing. The asset management plan and prioritization process is currently underway and concludes typically in April. This will feed the updated 5-year financial forecast in Q2 of 2026. Overall, the goal of this process is to align the right money in the right year for the right requests and for the right reasons. Let me skip through these. There we go. Revenue is projected at low single-digit growth when looking at the compound annual growth rate, or CAGR. This incorporates the University of Colorado Leeds School of Business economic growth forecast for sales and use tax that was presented on October 14, 2025. The forecast incorporates grants that we know will be received and not potential future funding from grants not yet awarded and not agreed upon, as is the case with one of them. We are exploring upcoming opportunities for debt restructuring, which would not transact until later in the year, so impacts related to those potential activities are not incorporated. We have included an assumption of 3% inflation. Only a subset of materials, parts, and equipment and technology are expected to be affected by tariffs. And we have included a 3% assumption, or 1.2 million for 2026, for example. The FIFE is tied closely to the Transit Asset Management Plan with continued maturities. And importantly, we have aimed to meet RTD's fiscal policy, incorporating reserves for 3 months of operating expense, as well as net revenue coverage of at least 1.2 for debt repayment obligations in both principal and interest. Net revenue is revenue less operating expense. We're also utilizing capital replacement funds and unrestricted funds according to the fiscal policy. Looking at revenue, first of all, the primary item to highlight here is that the Business Research Division of the University of Colorado Boulder reduced the sales and use tax forecast in the medium scenario by $91 million for 2027 through 2030, and we have incorporated that change into this forecast. There is no change to the grants and contributions line in this forecast. As you know, the 2026 budget included $139 million for East Colfax BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, that is not shown in future years, which is why the grant funding declines between 2026 and 2027. This is a pass-through to the City and County of Denver. The federal formulaic and statutory dedicated funding source that is automatically granted to the agency is included in the forecast for those federal grants. Historically, there has not been dedicated funding from the state, and staff is expecting to receive a Clean Transit Enterprise grant agreement very soon, and will review the requirements in that agreement once we receive it to ensure that the agency can fulfill those requirements. Once the CTE agreement is executed, then staff plans to incorporate that state grant into the budget. Overall, the compound annual growth rate for sales and use tax is 5.2%, and for total revenue, it is 1.6%. Next, let's look at operating expense, which has trended high since 2024 as compared to revenue. Both 2025 and 2026 include expense related to East Colfax BRT, which is not included in 2027 and beyond. The rest of the reduction in operating expense between the 2026 budget and the latest 2027 forecast is approximately $184 million to help close the deficit the RTD has operated at since 2024. Continuing at a large deficit is not a sustainable approach, as it reduces the agency's reserves. And the agency's fiscal policy follows the Colorado revised statute that says expenditures cannot be in excess of available revenues and beginning fund balances. Reducing the operating expenses to a more sustainable level balances the net sources and uses of funds here, as well as on the statement of revenue, expense, and change in net position. During the board's 2026 budget study session on October 22 of 2025, I discussed on packet page 43 that our ask of the board was to pursue significant incremental revenue sources for 2026 and beyond. And without that secured soon, we would need to begin planning steps to balance the budget for 2027. And now here we are. Staff has also previewed with our committee chair and vice chair that this forecast would bring operating expense down significantly to provide a balanced budget and a fiscally sustainable approach. I will also call out here that we have included no incremental financing per request of a few board members. All right, next, to help avoid incremental financing, we have also incorporated a reduction in capital expenditures. Capital expenditures will require an extensive review over the next several months as the asset management plan is updated annually. In this view, though, I have incorporated a delay in purchasing $187 million in 40-foot buses, as the cost of these buses has been increasing significantly, which changes the economics of maintaining them longer. Additionally, the agency reduced service due to the COVID-19 pandemic and underutilized those buses. They have less mileage than was expected years ago and still meet performance criteria, so that the agency has excess utilization available in the fleet. There was also capacity in maintenance to complete component changeouts to extend the useful life, and looking at cost, performance, and risk, it may make sense to extend the life of those vehicles. I will also point out that the 2026 budget column includes capital expenditures of $603 million, which includes the capital carry forward that was included in the 2026 budget. This is budgeted in order to begin, for example, procurement processes, and not all of these capital funds will actually be spent in 2026. Some we expect to carry forward from 2026 into 2027, and that amount will be estimated in Q4 of 2026. In terms of alignment to the board's fiscal policy, you can see here that for 2027 through 2030, revenue plus unrestricted reserves are greater than expenditures. The net revenue coverage ratio for 2027 through 2030, it meets the minimum requirement of 1.2. This is calculated by revenue less operating expense over debt service. So it does not factor in capital expense or depreciation expense. In order to balance the financials sustainably, the net revenue coverage ratio actually will need to be higher than 1.2. Lastly, the operating reserve is kept at 3 months in case of economic downturn or other risks. I have changed the highlight on this slide from the packet to correct the row for the Fast Tracks Internal Savings Account, or FISA, which in this forecast is shown with no change from the 2026 budget. Get forward here. All right, in conclusion, staff is wrapping up and prioritizing the asset management plan for 2027 through 2031, which will feed and update the FIFE through 2031, and this will inform the 2027 budget. And Chair Banker, thank you for the opportunity to present, and that concludes my comments. I will turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, CFO Mackey. Very good. I know I'm pretty sure there's going to be some questions. So I see Director Geisinger. You're first. Ask your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Appreciate the run through there. I sent some of these questions today, and I appreciate you, giving some answers. The FIFE takes the operating expenses down from 1.1 billion roughly to 790,000, 1.1 billion in 2026 to 790,000. It's $323 million change. That's huge. What I've been hearing in reading in the memo from Ms. Johnson to Stefan and the board is there's a $250 million shortfall. So I'm wondering where the $250 million shows up, because I see 541 at the end of this year and 323 taken out for the next year. Where did the 250 come from, and why are we looking at 323 million?
So if you look at the statement of, excuse me, Chair Banker?
Yes,
Megan? Thank you.
yes,
Okay.
CFO Mackey, please.
If you review the statement of revenue, expense, and change in net position, the private sector known as the P&L or income statement, and if you exclude carry forwards, that is where the 250 million deficit comes from. It's approximately 250 million. So there's a few ways to look at it. In the view that we presented in the packet, where that comes from is you saw a significant reduction in operating expense between 2026 and 2027. Approximately 139 million of that is related to East Colfax BRT expenses that are shown in 2026 and not in 2027. If any of that were to carry forward from 2026 into 2027, then it would be added. But that is a very large portion of that reduction. And then the balance of the funds is approximately 184 million reduction in operating expense shown in this particular view between 2026 budget and 2027, which is additional reduction in operating expense. And keep in mind also that throughout the course of 2026, we have been able, throughout the course of 2025, staff has been able to navigate the year operating lower than budget, and we do hope that will continue into 2026. So it's not a sharp reduction in $184 million, but we're able to start some of those reductions actually throughout 2026. But that's how you build to that figure. I would point out lastly that you'll see an increase in revenue between 2027 and 2028. And some of the increase also we're able to capture between 2026 and 2027. If you exclude the East Colfax BRT grant revenue, there's actually increase in revenue factored in, which will help us close that deficit gap.
So, that explanation, I think, is very helpful to the board and to the world. And I guess I'm wondering, what do you think? Should we look at breaking out our capital programs budget and our operations budget? Because it doesn't seem to me like if we come in with 380 million carryover, and I think you'd agree we're not going to spend $603 million this year. Is that right?
No, we designate those funds in order to start procurement processes, for example, and get projects going, but we don't always expect to spend those funds in the year. Correct.
So what it does is it makes our deficit look enormous and makes us start talking, numbers that don't fully make sense. Any suggestions? What do you think about pulling the capital budget out separate?
Chair Banker?
Yes, CFO Mackey, please address that, because I know this is also going to be a topic of conversation that we're going to have more discussion on in the next month or so. But give us your thoughts, please.
Yes, thank you. In the monthly supplementary materials that are provided to the Board of Directors, you will find that statement of revenue, expense, and change in net position. And
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you. What'd you say?
In the monthly materials that are provided to the board as the additional supplemental information, it's also listed on the website. You will see the statement of revenue, expense, and change in net position, the income statement, so to speak. In that, you see the budget reflected without capital expenditures. So that is shown monthly, and I'm happy to bring it to the Finance and Planning Committee for discussion as well. But it is shown in that view without capital expenditures. Also, a lot of times when we show these views, as we did in the packet, we will show actual expenditures, such as for 2024, we showed in a couple of the presentations last year, and we'll probably show in upcoming months. And so when you see the columns for actuals soon for 2025, you will also see what the capital expenditures were actually without those budgeted funds for capital. So there's two places we can see it.
Okay, if Director Geisinger, if you have additional questions, I'd like to go to Director Larson next, and then we can continue that discussion.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. May I follow up just quickly?
Sure, go ahead.
Just by presenting this financial forecast to us without any explanation and to the world without any explanation, it doesn't seem like we're really explaining what's going on. And, maybe the board needs to change our fiscal policies to define it better. But I found this, there was a lot in here, as you saw in my questions, that were really sort of not understandable. So I hope we can talk about, how we move this to create a more realistic picture of what's going on. So we're not saying, well, that doesn't count and this won't be paid and all of that. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Director Geisinger. Director Larson, your question, please.
So right now it looks like in 2027 you're anticipating reducing operating expenses by 184 million. I know it's still early, but do you anticipate that will need to be done by reducing service hours? And then I have a follow-up.
Okay, CFO Mackey.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Actually, I see GM CEO Johnson has her hand raised.
Oh, CEO Johnson, please go forward.
Thank you very much, Chair Banker, and thank you, Director Larson, for the question. I just wanted to frame the response, and I'll yield the floor to CFO Mackey. But as referenced in Director Geisinger's comments about a memorandum that I disseminated, that was done in unison with the leadership team, quite naturally, as we've been talking about a $250 million deficit. We all have a fiscal responsibility, and we're looking at a myriad of strategies to eliminate the deficit. Keeping in mind that we are a labor-intensive organization, we have looked at various elements in which we're going to take into consideration first. But we have a session tomorrow as a leadership team where we're going to have presentations from the leaders of our various departments. So Director Larson, I'm providing that context to say that everything's on the table as we look at what's before us. And so I can't sit here definitively and share with you what might be service reductions until we have that opportunity. But as CFO Mackey will attest, because she and I have been working closely as well as the leadership team, that we will share that information quite naturally with you and those in the organization, quite due to the fact that we're people moving people. And anything that we do related to service will basically have an impact relative to optimizing service and perhaps causing some other services to be reduced. So with that, I'll yield the floor. And Ms. Mackey, if you had any additional information you'd like to impart. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Director Larson, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I guess the question is there any prudent or realistic option that we can foresee right now? I mean, other than reducing the expenses by $184 million?
CFO Mackey, do you want to address that? And then I'd also like to chime in at the end.
If we're able to find a substantial new revenue source very soon, right before we conclude the budget exercise for 2027, so I would say within the next 3 to 6 months, maybe 9 at the most, yes, that would be a way that we would be able to adjust this view and not reduce operating expense so much. We are not able to defease debt again because that works against us, right? I mean, in terms of that would hurt our ratios for 2026. And truly, our credit rating agencies are expecting us to do this as well, right? They see the financial position that we're in terms of revenue, and they expect us to manage our expenses prudently, which does mean aligning operating expense more closely to what ongoing revenue is expected to be. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you. I would like to I know I cannot speak for the full board, but I think if the full board starts to look at the kind of service reductions that are being outlined in this particular FIFA, I think you're going to hear from the board. There are other options, many other options that we need to pursue. And so this is just the beginning of the discussion for FY27. But I'm going to be asking everybody to come up with some suggestions on how we raise revenue and reduce expenditures without reducing service delivery. So thank you. Director Rusha, ask your question or comment or your thoughts.
Well, I have a lot. I'll try to prune them to save time. So I feel like it bears mentioning or repeating maybe that right now, according to like what we passed a couple months ago and also this forecast, we're not meeting our own operating reserve fund policy, which requires that we have a fund balance equal to 3 months of operating expenses. At least that's what I'm seeing like in these documents. So before I proceed, is that something that you can address, Ms. Mackey? Can you confirm or correct
Yes,
or
CFO
provide
Mackey,
additional context?
if you'd
Yes,
like
thank
to
you. So
talk about
throughout
that.
yes, thank you. So throughout the course of 2025, we have been operating significantly below our budget for operating expenditures, and I can double check the math. I believe probably we are in line in terms of actuals, but I would be happy to take a look after this call.
Okay, thank you. Director Rusha, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes. Just say thank you for that, Ms. Mackey. And again, maybe I'm looking at the wrong. Simple math says that we're falling short, but it could be just in terms of, it could be because of what we're calling operating expenses and how we're defining fund and reserve. So thank you for that. I did have a question in our question and comment. So comment first. I'd like to vote yes on this. And while I understand this is a forecast, it makes a lot of assumptions, and I just don't personally feel that I have enough information as a director to concur. And it doesn't mean that I think staff is wrong inherently, but you know, this document is like a guiding document and it is a planning document. So I personally am not comfortable tonight, although I did try to get to that space before this evening. With that, I do have a question that might help moving forward. So if you look at our, like the last draft of the 5-year financial forecast, right? I say draft because we didn't pass it. And that was just a handful of months ago. Under the expenditures, we have like operating expenses, and then you'll see expense projects, financing proceeds, and it goes down. And I was wondering if Ms. Mackey, you could please kindly remind us what we're classifying as an expense project and how that differs from capital improvement or TAM or any other such type of project that we've talked about tonight.
Good question. CFO Mackey, would you like to answer that, please?
Yes, I believe Lou Cripps is on the phone too. So Mr. Cripps, if you would like to contribute to the answer, feel welcome to raise your hand. But my understanding is that in general, expense projects are for items that are capital, but they're under $5,000 each. So for example, if the agency was to purchase a set of radios that cost less than $5,000, instead of capitalizing those on the balance sheet and depreciating them over time, you would see those one-time expenditures fall under expense projects, which does hit on the financial statements that you'll see in the board materials. It falls under operating expense there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Director Rusha, do you have something quick? Because we need to move on.
Quick, I've been quick, I'll stay quick. Thank you. So thank you, I appreciate that, Ms. Mackey. And I was just gonna say, since your explanation regarding capital carry forward with Director Geisinger, I had a similar question and I thought that might be it. That answers most of my question. What I would just offer is like, when we look at these, the forecast, I don't think anybody can reasonably believe that, our operating expenses would be trending, or like have that trend, right? Because we're going to have more projects. We already know we have a backlog we haven't even, appropriated dollars for yet. And so I'm not saying that I'm not trying to lecture staff about things they already know to be true, but, just like from my colleagues, as we look at this, bad news doesn't get better with time. And I think this is just sort of scratching the surface of some really, difficult conversations. So Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Rusha. Director Guzman, questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about the FISA line on this. In previous years, we have seen fluctuation, addition to or subtraction from the FISA accounts to pay for the services and the items that the FISA is approved for in the 2004 vote. And I am curious why we have just left that alone and we're not looking at that. Operating budget is now being consumed by services that are participating services from FISA and should properly be paid by the FISA. And there's other elements under the FISA collection of tax that could be paid for out of that fund. And we are not looking at that on the 5-year plan. And so I'm just curious, wildly curious about why we're not investigating that more as directors, because it could be anything from park and rides to the Flatiron Flyer services to an airport bus from Longmont to the Denver International Airport, or from other parts of the district to achieve the purpose of that vote in 2004. And so if we're just going to ignore that we have that money sitting there while we talk about debt and deficit approaching us, I am wildly curious to find out why we are ignoring the money that we have collected to pay for some of those services more robustly and allow our operating budget separately and the funds that are collected for the base fund to be used for the base work instead of attacking the base fund for more, I don't know, to leverage what's the outcome there that helps RTD if we're not using the money that we're collecting in a stewardship way. Thank you.
CFO Mackey?
I have no further comments to that. I don't believe there was a question in there. I believe it was just a comment or a question directed more toward board members.
Okay. Any other comments, Director Guzman? Okay. Director Rusha, did you have another question? Your hand is up. No, we're good. Any other questions or comments with regard to the FIFA? Director Geisinger?
Thank you. Ms. Mackey, did I understand that the $550 million financing proceeds for the buses that y'all have determined we don't need those buses right now? I assume that's not you determining it, but somebody in bus ops or that we can extend the life of those buses?
Yeah, Chair Banker, if I may.
Oh, absolutely. Go for it.
With the reduction in operating expense shown here, as well as balancing the budget, we have made some reduction in capital expenditures for buses, and that was only 187 million, so we didn't reduce the full 500 million. And the 187 million is to delay them, but we do need to review this more extensively. We think the delay is possible, but we will review over the coming months to ensure that is the right decision and ensure we have the right timing and the right quantities incorporated. And we will provide updates to those recommendations in the next forecast.
Okay, I'll make one last comment and then
Yes.
it looks like a lot of other people came on, but
Go for it.
just that, I still, what I need to support this is to understand how we get to the 250 million, why we're going to the 323 million, and the information behind all of this. And I know you ran through it orally, but I think as a board, we need to look at our fiscal policies and help you present this in a way that makes more sense to us and to the world and is a more real picture than some of what we're showing with our capital carry forwards and all of that. So I guess that's a request. I will be a no vote tonight, and I'm requesting that we can get the information we need to make better decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Geisinger. Director Arcuri?
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Director Becker. I'm piggybacking here on Director Geisinger. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? I'm sorry if I did not. I need a lot of footnotes in this report, and I need a lot of stories written out as to what is real, what is an estimate, when is something going to be revised. And Ms. Mackey, you had some comments which are not going to stick in my brain unless they are written out, where I think you would be recommending us to consider some changes to the fiscal policy. And I'm definitely interested, right, in your ideas and recommendations on those areas. So I would appreciate a section in this report to also include something like that. Also with just a general timeline, it seems like this document is more like a living document that just is almost continuously revised. And so when do we actually expect something final? And there were so many instances where you spoke about things really aren't as bad as they look. Once we see what actuals for 2025 really will be. I don't know why the 2025 hasn't been re-estimated like other things have been re-estimated, for example. And I think that, and I echo the same things that Lynn said. Yeah, we just need a lot more information, and this presented in different ways, different tables that break things down, so that we can truly understand what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Arcuri. Any questions, or CFO Mackey, did you want to respond, or any thoughts?
Yes, I'm happy to respond. So I would look at the packet page that shows the timeline to see what the timeline of the 5-year financial forecast is. And typically in the past, staff has presented the update in July, as well as in September for the 5-year financial forecast. For the changes to fiscal policy, I don't particularly recommend any changes to the fiscal policy. It may be worth revisiting the Fast Track's internal savings account portion to ensure that's still aligned with the desires of the board of directors. But other than that, I do not recommend any changes. And then in terms of where 2025 is coming out, the board receives every month a financial update, including the statement of revenue, expense, and change in net position. And there you can see a good view through the end of November, where the agency is coming out, and it's very close to year end. So you have a good view there, which is quite favorable to what the budget is, but it is operating at a very large deficit as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Arcuri, do you have any other questions or comments? Your hand is up. No. Okay, Director Gutschrunter, your comments.
Thank you, Chair Banker. And if you're hearing a crabby baby in the background, I apologize.
Oh, we should see the crabby baby. I'd like to see the little girl.
Not a good time. Let's see. So first off, I just wanted to say, CFO Mackey, thank you so much for all the work that went into this, and I appreciate the presentation. I think it was in November or October. It was around that timeline that we did not approve the original FIFE. And I know there's been a ton of great deal of effort, time, energy that's been put into this, and I understand that it's not binding. It's primarily for planning purposes. But I personally just kind of feel like I need more time to mold this type of document over. And so that's just the feedback I want. There is a lot in this, and it's just a quick turnaround to come and hear the footnotes and kind of the supplemental pieces of information that you've shared that's really helpful, but it's a lot to process kind of real time. So that's just feedback I want to provide. And then I had a question around, I think it was the fiscal policy. You just said you don't recommend changes to that beyond considering the FISA. And I would love to understand more on that top, why you think that. Thank you.
CFO Mackey, if you want to respond.
Yes, I think, for example, the debt coverage ratios, and there's more than one included in the fiscal policy, I think those are prudent, and we should frankly exceed those in order to balance the budget. I believe that the requirements in the fiscal policy to have a balanced budget follow the Colorado revised statute, so I would not change that. I believe that the other aspects of the fiscal policy make a lot of sense, the operating reserve being 3 months, conservatism in the revenue forecast. I think it served RTD well in the past. and allow the agency to keep a relatively strong financial position as reflected in our credit scores.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up, Director Guschen-Ritter? No. Okay, thank you. Director Larson.
So just to be clear, if the board wanted to, we could use some of the FISA reserves to reduce our operating deficit next year. It would just be a question of the board approving that.
CFO Mackey?
Yes, that is my understanding.
Thank you. Any other questions, Director Larson? No. Director Rusha? Another question or comment?
Comment. So I don't know where we are on the votes tonight. But if we can't move forward with this tonight, I just wanted to express, like, I would be concerned if it were months before we had another forecast or update or something to discuss. So I don't know if it would be prudent to perhaps delay this vote for like 1 month or 2, but I don't want to kick this to like May or June. So I don't know if that's me like almost making a motion, but I just want to put that out there. I would just be really concerned if we didn't have a more comprehensive picture, for several months from now. Because obviously the board needs to make some decisions, and we're gonna need time to make those decisions.
And I agree with you. We need more time. There's a very large shift from the past document that we were looking at, the 5-year, to the one we're looking at now. And there's a lot that is included in here, which has already been raised by several directors about needing additional information and the thinking behind it. So I know I myself would like to have more time, but we'll get to that. Any other comments, Director Rusha?
Is it okay? Madam Chair, I mean, can we ask staff if they can recommit to bringing something back for us to look at in a month or 2? I guess I don't want to go through the motions of making a motion and then
Right.
process. I don't know if that helps.
Well, I'll put in my 2 cents worth and then we can continue the discussion. As it stands now, I think I'm going to be voting no. Primarily because after talking to CFO Mackey and with Mr. Kroll today and a number of other folks that called with concerns about this, there is nothing that we need to pass at the moment. We do need to pass a 5-year forecast in June. And I think once the board and the finance committee discusses this more in depth and figures out, are we ready to cut service next year? I think that's a very important board question. And so to be putting it into a planning document, I would hesitate to do that and get the word out. In fact, I will mention, I even had an email today from someone who has been watching and paying attention to our packets. And the question was, please don't cut service, because they were looking at the operating numbers. So my 2 cents worth. So we'll continue. Director Guzman, what would you like to add to the discussion here?
Thank you. A comment for CFO Mackey and a quick question. Thank you for addressing the fiscal policy and some things around there, but I do have curiosity around the debt ratio of 1.2. Because last year we had a conversation in the same committee and at the board level about whether we needed to increase that or not, to make sure that we had sufficient planning in place, and that 1.2 can be a stumbling block if we're not careful with it. We don't need to discuss it further here, but maybe we can take that offline and have a conversation about it, because I would like to find out your rationale behind not wanting to change that particular number. But I heard you. There's more than just that one ratio in the fiscal policy, and so I'm curious about that. Thank you for also stating that we are following Colorado revised statutes and the law, because I think that sometimes we forget that that's a big part of the fiscal policy that we have to be mindful of. The second thing, and I don't know who this would be an appropriate question for, Madam Chair, but this is really the question that I have. Do we have an appropriate fleet ratio currently to continue to provide our core services without having to worry about making purchases or putting out requests for purchases in the near future? And the reason I'm concerned about that is because the idea that we would try to extend the life of the fleet we currently have rings of caution for me, for two reasons. One, we are and have been and continue to be one of the best ways to achieve the state's greenhouse gas emission reduction goals with our fleet. But also, we have an aging fleet. And as was pointed out earlier in the month, most of our infrastructure is at a 50% sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Age differential. The monetary word is escaping me at the moment.
I
But
understand.
do we have what we need? And with the remaining fleet that we have, if that ratio is correct for federal expectations, can we provide the services that we need to going forward without making a quick move immediately? But I say that with the caution that if we delay making purchases, things just get more expensive. And God knows, tariffs on materials that are coming into this country to build these types of buses and trains and train sets and everything else that we need is not going to get cheaper if we delay making those purchases. So I am really truly concerned about having the right amount of buses, train sets, cutaway vehicles to be able to provide our car service business. Thank you.
Okay, well, I do not have the answer to that. I will share a conversation that I had with you with a council member
I
from.
believe the general manager raised her hand.
Thank you. I saw that. I had a conversation with a city council member from Lafayette, and he wanted to talk to me about buying diesel buses. And what he made me think about, which I thought was important, is that if we go forward, say next year and year after, and we're buying diesel buses and we're buying them in large quantities, he said, keep in mind that you are going to have them for the next 12 years, and the air in Denver will only continue to get worse. So I thought that was a very thoughtful comment, and it's something I do think about. CEO Johnson, what would you like to add? Provide us more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Banker, and thank you, Director Guzman. Just wanted to ground us in the question that was posed by Director Guzman. First and foremost, you mentioned, I believe you're talking about spare ratio when you said fleet ratio, and then you're talking about useful life. That's incorporated into our TAM, and keeping in mind that traditionally it's 12 years, 500,000 miles, but keeping in mind that procuring vehicles, there's a longer lead time. And with RTD, we customarily look about 14 years of taking delivery of our retired fleet vehicles, to the point that Committee Chair Banker was making about the comments you received from a counselor in Lafayette. A couple of things to keep in mind: that this agency did embark upon a facilities fleet and transition plan, because what's critically important is having the infrastructure in place to maintain vehicles, considering that our operating divisions were purposely built for diesel. We have to ensure that we can support alternative fuels going forward, and then keeping in mind with the elements associated with the original equipment manufacturers that are readily available. We do have in our facilities fleet and transition plan that we would be optimally transitioning as we move forward. Any type of service impacts, we will quite naturally look as we plan a schedule. Quite naturally, the first aspect is you have to look at vehicles and then look at people as relates to developing a schedule. So that will be taken into consideration. So whatever we are doing from an operating vantage point to reduce the expenses will be looked through the lens of our service delivery, because that's the core business in which this agency basically conducts. So with that, I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, directors, are we ready to vote? Any other comments or? Okay, so I'd like to, I have a feeling it's not going to be, I think it should be an individual vote, because I suspect there's going to be a few folks that are going to say yes and a few that are going to say no. So let's start. Director Arcuri?
No.
Okay. Director Geisinger?
No.
Director Guschenritter?
No.
Director Guzman?
I'm a no.
Director Larson,
No.
Director Rusha.
No.
Okay, and I also am a no. So I see this as actually a step forward. So thank you for everyone really looking into it, digging, asking good questions. This is important for us to start working on to next year's budget, which seems like it's a long ways away, but it's really not. I know there are a lot of folks at RTD that are already working on next year's budget. So let's go on then to the next item. We have, let's see, here we are. The next item then is the authorizing resolution for state funding. So for the Board of Directors to approve this resolution, series of 2026, authorizing the General Manager CEO to be responsible for requesting, receiving, and spending funds, as well as legally committing the agency to compliance with terms of awards from the state of Colorado and political subdivisions thereon. Do we have a motion? Oh, thank you, Mr. Kroll. I see you're pulling that motion up for us. Thank you. That's helpful.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Director Geisinger made the motion, and was it
Director-
Director Larson the second?
It was Rusha.
Oh, sorry.
No, well, it was
Director
Gitchenwitter,
Rusha.
but okay.
Oh,
No, it
Director
was me,
Geisinger.
actually.
Okay. Okay, so it's seconded. Okay, so let's see. Let me ask our CFO, Kelly Mackey, to present this item to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Banker, for the opportunity to present this item. This is a recommended action for the authorizing resolution for state funding, which is a procedural but important step that ensures RTD can continue to access and utilize state grant funding effectively. This mirrors the action item brought to the board in February of 2025 concerning authorization for the general manager and CEO to request and accept federal grant funds. Today's resolution authorizes our GM and CEO to request, receive, and spend funds awarded by the state of Colorado and its political subdivisions. It also empowers the GM CEO to legally commit RTD to comply with all terms and conditions associated with those awards. RTD is a direct recipient of state grant funding, which is critical for advancing projects and supporting our priority of financial success. These funds often come through programs such as the State of Colorado Department of Transportation's Funding Advancements for Surface Transportation and Economic Recovery Act, or FASTER, initiative, and other state-level funding opportunities. And to remain eligible, we must demonstrate proper authorization and compliance. State funding comes with specific qualifications, certifications, and reporting requirements. Our internal policies already ensure strategic pursuit of grants, and this resolution provides the formal documentation needed to maintain eligibility and streamline the process. Expenditures of funds, including grant funds, will still follow the board's delegation of authority and competitive selection resolution concerning procurement and contract authority. For example, this action item will explicitly authorize the GM CEO to accept and sign the state FASTER grant agreements that will fund bus procurements, but the contract for underlying bus purchase will still come before the board for approval as the amount exceeds the GM CEO's delegated contract authority. So key points of the resolution are that it appoints the GM CEO to request, receive, and spend state awarded funds. It empowers the GM CEO to legally commit RTD to compliance with award terms, and it has no direct financial impact. This is an administrative authorization, not a funding request. And adopting this resolution positions RTD to continue leveraging state resources efficiently and responsibly. It is a necessary step to keep us aligned with state requirements and to support our financial sustainability. And I recommend approval of this resolution. And Ms. Chair, thank you again, and I will
Okay.
now turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments about this measure? Okay, seeing none, I don't think there's too much controversy. Of course, there can always be questions. So are we ready for a vote? Shall I say all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Okay, so it passes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we have one discussion item, and that is the 2026 Finance and Planning Committee Work Plan, which you've got in your packet. It's not complete, but this is considering the time with the retreat and many other things that are going on right now. I think it's a good place to start. So I would like to ask our CFO Mackie and Mr. Kroll to speak to the plan and talk a little bit about what's scheduled for the rest of the year at this point. I don't know who wants to go first. Ms. Mackie or Mr. Kroll? Oh, thank you. Thank you for putting it up. That's helpful.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to overview the draft work plan that we have presented here. So in the month of March, if you could scroll down just a little bit, we've included a proposal to overview the 2026 budget update resolution on grant awards. So long as we are able to receive the agreement before then and execute that agreement, then we would, according to the resolution, proceed with updating the budget. Next for March, we recommend most likely the timing would be March annexation process into RTD presented by Mr. Quinn. We would hopefully at that time approve the work plan for the Finance and Planning Committee. And then we would also give a preliminary view of the 2025 year-end financial performance, and we would overview the 2027 development process for the budget. And then looking at April, we would give an overview with the CU Leads School of Business presenters on the sales and use tax forecast with their latest update. We do plan to present most likely in April an electronic fare collection system back-end contract extension as a discussion item, and then bring that back in May as an action item. We will potentially in May also bring the bus stop infrastructure accessibility assessment final report to the committee, as well as another financial performance update that will be through early Q1 of 2026. We may have a debt refinancing proposal ready in time to present during the May Finance and Planning Committee, which we would bring back potentially in June for action. Also in May, we would give most likely another update on the 2027 budget development to ensure that this is top of mind throughout the year, as we do realize this is going to be quite a process achieving a balanced budget. And frankly, this evening's view of the 5-year financial forecast was just the preliminary step in that to give you an idea of what we're working toward. This will be an ongoing process throughout the year. So we have it on this proposed agenda regularly through the year. In July, we have a view of the 5-year financial forecast that will go through 2031. That will be a discussion item, and that follows the asset management plan process. So we will have the AMP ready, which will feed the forecast, and that is typically the timing that the updated FIFE with the new AMP is available for discussion is in July. We'll give another update on budget development. Turning to September, we would hope to take action on the updated 5-year financial forecast in September, provide another financial performance update, as well as budget development update. And then that time of year is typically when we revisit the fiscal policy and the investment policy to make changes for the upcoming year. So we would bring those for discussion in September and then back for action in October. As well as we would bring in October the proposed budget for discussion, as well as the sales and use tax forecast. And then for November, we have the 2027 proposed budget as an action item, followed by the annual salary trust appointments, and then we go to the new year.
Okay, Mr. Kroll, do you have anything to add? I know these things could change, and they will change. All kinds of economic changes will occur this year. But Mr. Kroll, do you have anything to add?
Committee Chair Banker, this is Jack Kroll, Executive Manager of the Board Office. The only thing that I would add as you all contemplate your work plan and as you do your work throughout the year is just to keep in mind that this will be a flexible document, it will change, and that it does run through the early part of 2027. I think for this committee, that seems like a long way off, and there's a lot of challenges and hard conversations that will need to be had between now and then. But I don't want you or Director Arcuri, as the Vice Chair of the committee, and the rest of your colleagues to lose sight that you can, agendize things going into early next year to help ensure that if there are initiatives or projects that you're working on, that those don't lose steam.
Okay, any questions? Actually, under other matters, we're going to pretty much continue this discussion because there are a number of other things that I wanted to present to the committee and get your ideas. Director Guzman, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not see reference to the annual comprehensive financial report. Will we be looking at the ACFR in this committee in April or May or something like that? It's typically when we take a peek at it. Just curious. That's one.
Okay, CFO Mackey?
Yes, so following what was done in 2025, this was brought to the audit committee
Okay.
later in Q2, not the finance and planning committee, but certainly open to adjusting that approach.
Okay.
Thank you. I have one more real quick.
Okay,
I had requested earlier information about the sales and use tax for 2025 that was collected by the district. And if it was sent out, please forgive me. I did not have an opportunity to do more than review for this meeting today. But I am curious if we are primed to finally receive that information. I know we were waiting for reports from certain counties. And so have we received that information? And will we be getting it soon? And then I'll just ask the last one, which is because I might have to drop off and I apologize, but when we say balanced budget, Director Larson was very keen on this, and I agree with him. We need to understand as a team what that means and what the definition is. So this evening, we have received a definition of what that is by our CFO. And what is in the fiscal policy. And I know there's some disagreement there with board directors. And so I want to make sure that this team of people that are working on this committee, this team of directors can clarify what we mean when we say a balanced budget, because we didn't pass an unbalanced budget for this year. And I don't want to be misunderstanding what the expectation is or give unclear direction to our agency about what we expect going forward. So that's for us, but maybe CFO Mackey would be able to answer the other question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. CFO Mackey.
Yes, I did receive the draft report of the year-ending sales and use tax today, so I will send that to GM CEO Johnson. But at a high level, so the year, it looks like it came in at 869 million in sales and use tax versus a budget of 903 million. So we missed budget by $34 million.
Wow. Good information. Thank you. Director Gucci-Ritter.
Thank you, Chair Banker. And this might be a little out of left field, but I don't know where it fits, and it's somehow, I don't know if it's appropriate for a work plan or it's just an email update, but I'm interested in hearing about the consolidation of applications, and so I don't know if that fits into planning. I think that's to be delivered later in 26.
I'm sorry, could you repeat yourself? I didn't hear everything. Consolidation of
application.
So yeah. Tell me more.
Well, I see Jack has Executive Manager Kroll has his hand up.
I think GM and CEO Johnson's picking up what you're putting down here, so I'll defer to her.
Okay, CEO Johnson.
Yes, thank you very much, Committee Chair, and thank you, Director Gucci-Ritter, for the question. So basically, I believe you're talking about the consolidation of our mobile applications to navigate the system and enhance the customer experience. We're looking to launch that in Q3 of 2026.
Thank you. And will there be any, may I?
Oh, yes, go for it.
Will there be any kind of updates or preview?
If I may, Committee Chair?
Yes.
Yes, so basically we have been apprising Operations Safety and Security Committee because this is an aspect of our service delivery that helps navigate our system. So we will be ensuring that we are apprising that committee accordingly, and any briefing materials, they go out to the full board. So you'll be able to have that information readily available and tune into the OSS committee.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome, sir.
Director Geisinger.
Thank you. I agree with, I think what Director Rusha was saying, which is, we've got some sort of unfinished business here. And I think that very soon we should have on our work plan to revisit the FIFE and I think even bigger to look at how we're budgeting. We say we didn't pass a deficit budget, but it's $1 million that shows to the world. I think we need to look at our capital projects and the fact that we have this $380 million carry forward and we have $603 million in there that we're not going to spend and figure out a way to show our real operating budget. So I would ask that we put that on the, maybe, I don't know if we're moving, I guess it's discussion tonight. We put our budgeting and forecasting process on the work plan for March.
Director Geisinger, I think you're right on target, which also leads me to one of the things that I wanted to talk about before we leave tonight. And that's where do we go from here? Next steps. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I've talked to a number of folks. I've talked to Mr. Kroll. I've talked to some other directors to try to figure out, because this is difficult with 15 different directors and you're trying to balance a budget. So here's two suggestions. One would be pulling together a survey of detailed options that we may have, both for this fiscal year, but more importantly for next fiscal year, both on the expenditure side and the revenue side, and doing a survey. And if folks want to fill it out, I hope they do. If they don't, that's fine. If they don't want to get involved with budget discussions, I understand that. So I've been working with Mr. Kroll, and hopefully we can get that out Friday or Monday. And it's going to be fairly detailed. And so if you can take a look at it, see what you think, vote, let us know what kinds of things you're interested in pursuing. That'd be really helpful. Another suggestion that was given to me, which I liked, I was been thinking about this, is perhaps maybe having some small group discussions on the budget where it's hard to have all 15 of us debate, whether or not we want to raise, say, the EcoPass fare. But if we had a group of maybe 3 or 4 directors where we've got our CEO and our CFO to answer questions and just sort of brainstorm and just have a conversation. If anyone is interested in participating in some of these small group discussions, I think that might be a good way to involve board members, but in a more informal way to get their thoughts. You don't have to, you wouldn't be making motions, of course, anything, but just to share information. So, I think I'd like to put that out and see if anybody is interested. The budget can be daunting, and I would like to try to make it as friendly a document as possible. So think about those things and give me your thoughts. And there, by using those kinds of tools, I think we can also then give some guidance to our staff as to what the board is looking for in the next budget. Do we cut service? Do we try to find more revenue? Is there something we can ask the state legislature for before they go out of session? These are some questions that we're going to have to start asking rather quickly. So I just put that out for you to consider. So give me your thoughts. You can call me, email me, whatever you feel comfortable with. Any other comments about the budget process for this coming year? Anybody else want to chime in here? Okay. The last, well, actually, 2 more things. There's the initial feedback and questions on the fair revenue assessment and exploration study session. If you recall, we were given a presentation at our last board meeting about, here it is, January 27th. And the information that was presented in here, we were asked to fill out a survey. I probably was one that did not. And I have my reasons. I will say the October 7th presentation that we received on Farebox recovery, I found invaluable. But I'd like to get your feedback about the two presentations that we had, the one on fare box recovery and the one on revenue assessments and exploration. Any thoughts or comments? No? Okay. You can always email them too, or fill out the form. The survey form, I think, only had like 2 or 3 questions to it. So consider that. And then the last item that I wanted to bring up before anybody else wants to add something to other matters. At our retreat in the finance committee that we had, Director Rusha brought up some very good points about the fiscal policy. And so giving that some thought, I reread it. And I did talk to Director Rusha and Director Arcuri today to see whether or not they would be interested in taking a look at the fiscal policies that we have and see if they need any tweaking. When I read through them today, I noticed there were a couple of duplications. So in that respect, it's not dire change, of course, but to take a look at perhaps some of the definitions of a balanced budget. We did have a good debate at the retreat, and clarification of that I think would be important. So I've asked those 2 directors to meet and see if they would recommend any changes, and certainly contact and work with our CFO and hopefully bring it forward if you do have any changes or recommendations at our March meeting. So keep me in the loop. So with that, any other comments? Any other items that you'd like to bring up? Director Guzman.
Yeah, I noticed at the bottom there are 4 unassigned items of the work plan since we're still there. And so I'll be interested to find out when we're going to discuss those, but I am curious, perhaps for the general manager CEO to speak to this. Work is progressing rather quickly, which is great, and efficiently along the East Colfax BRT, which does require us to buy a specialized fleet for that service, I believe. We need to figure out the procurement on there. Is there a plan to bring forward that work for the links? Because I'm not sure if that's the intercity buses or the articulated buses that are listed down below, and I don't want to forget that we need to meet that commitment, and I know that we stand ready to, but it's going to take all of us to get that done, just to keep up with the timeline. Thank you.
Okay, good question. CEO Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Director Banker. Thank you, Director Guzman, for the question. And relative to the question that you posed regarding the articulated buses dedicated to true bus rapid transit along East Colfax, that would be associated with the 47 articulated buses. That did come forward, as you know, to this committee previously, recognizing the authorization to pursue a summary scope of work going forward. So at this juncture, recognizing where we sit, we just don't know the time associated with that because it's based upon contract approval. And I don't want to delve too much active procurement, but just want you to know that is what that's associated with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Director Rusha.
Thank you. This is just general other matters, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I just I hesitated about saying anything tonight because I don't want to, summon Beetlejuice, but we have discussed directly and indirectly the possibility of layoffs, and that's been weighing on me heavily. I know I'm not the only person, but I just wanted to say as an individual director and say it now before it's too late for us to consider, if we get to that point where something like that happens, this is my request as an individual, only speaking for myself, that staff does everything they could to soften that blow, which means we provide a financial cushion. Again, I hope it doesn't come to that. But if we get to that point, I just wanted to say, this is just me personally and my values as a director, that my expectation is that staff comes to us if that happens, with a proposal that truly takes into account the pain that those employees could feel.
Mhm.
So I don't want to jinx us, but I know it's been on all of our minds, and I felt like I just had to share that now. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts.
No,
Yeah.
thank you. And I think I think we all agree with you. That would be a last resort. One of the things that I did want to talk to both our CEO and CFO is, what's the possibility of doing an early retirement program? Would that work? I don't know if there'd be any interest by the staff or anything, but there are some other options out there. So let's see, the fiscal year has just started. We've got a ways to go, and let's see what's in our future. So any other items, issues, comments, folks? Okay, then with that, we will close the meeting. But as a reminder, the next Finance and Planning Committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 10th. Mark your calendar. At that meeting, we will vote on the 2026 work plan, and we'll take other action to incorporate additional state funding into our budget. Additionally, we'll hold a discussion on the process to annex additional area into the RTD. Review our 2025 year-end financials and engage in a discussion on the 2027 budget development process. So seeing no other comments, the meeting is adjourned at 6:53. So thank you, everybody. It was a good meeting. I appreciate your time. Okay.